Thanks for coming in, Kieran, and talking to us about what must have been a very difficult time in your life. A lot of our clients are in similar roles to what you were at the time as a police officer, and they engage us to protect them on an annual basis, just like you did. So I appreciate you coming in to talk about your story, because you've got some real life experience of how it all worked and how we worked for you at the time. The brush you have with the criminal justice system, though, it's quite a story. It's quite amazing.
Absolutely, yeah, it is.
Can you tell us a little bit about it and how it came about and what happened?
Back in 2020, I guess I had a relatively normal life as a police officer. I think I was a good police officer, and I sort of went about things thinking that, you know, the justice system would work if you did the right thing. And I got a bit of a shock after a relationship breakdown in 2020. I had some pretty severe, serious and completely false allegations made against me by an ex-spouse. And the police service came down on me like a hammer, leaving me just with my world turned upside down. And yeah, a long, drawn-out saga continued from there, which is obviously where we met.
Yes, and I mean, it must be very disappointing for you to be falsely accused of an offence. We're obviously not alone in that regard, but I mean, as a police officer, you yourself would have approached your investigations objectively with an open mind and with fairness. Do you feel that that's what happened to you?
Yeah, no, not at all. I think there's a perception held by some people that police get away with things, but I felt as a police officer with an allegation made against me that I was immediately treated as guilty, and what was required to prove myself, not even innocent, to prove against sort of any sort of doubt that I didn't do these things, I was up against the wall from the start. It felt like everything was stacked against me, and that they wanted me to be found guilty of these things. And yeah, it was a very painful time.
And of course, the impact on you as a police officer is not the same as what it'd be on a civilian who has an unconnected job. But for you, the impact would have been quite severe, I guess, at the time. What happened to you?
Within hours of allegations being made, I was suspended from duty. I was stood down initially before being suspended. Had my powers as a police officer stripped off me.
Right.
A public statement put out by the police, not naming me, but, you know, a lot of people could identify who was being spoken about, stating that a police officer had been stood down for these reasons. It was very heavy. It affected my income, my livelihood, my career going forward. It really, something that somebody else it would affect anybody badly, but as a police officer being falsely accused, it was just another level.
Yeah. And I mean, the approach probably said to you that it didn't matter what the evidence said about your guilt or innocence, they were going to pursue it no matter what.
Absolutely. Through the process, we were as good as told that police don't drop these things against police. They'll run it out to the end despite what the evidence says, no matter what the cost emotionally or financially is to the person involved. They were going to go for me.
I recall that there was not only the initial allegations, but there were further allegations made on an ongoing basis by this person who appeared to be out to get you. And the same officers were involved in that investigation. And do you think that was fairly done at the time?
Not only was it so unfairly done that, you know, a magistrate later found it to be completely, totally vexatious.
And we got a big cost order for you, didn't we?
Which was rare in these type of matters. Which was a godsend. But you know, the magistrate actually found the complainant to be unreliable, untrustworthy, malicious. I mean, I believe he stated that she would say or do anything to achieve an outcome. She was a person familiar with the system and familiar with how it would affect me. Yes. It was obviously calculated, planned, the right phrases and things were said, and this should have been obvious to any police officer. But with me, they were a bullet at the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had the problem where there were, for some of these things, there were lots of witnesses, and we do find this, unfortunately, particularly more recently, I think, where people who are obviously relevant witnesses just aren't spoken to by police. And in your case, that was particularly frustrating because you knew that that was what they were meant to do, right, as part of their job. But
well, it wasn't just a few witnesses. In one situation, there was over a dozen witnesses, but I was further prosecuted based on an email typed to a police officer with no evidence and no investigation. That was enough.
that's right. I just charged you, did this?
Just straight off the bat. Yep. There was no investigation. It was lucky. Well, I had to then go, basically with the help of yourself, conduct my own investigation, get these witnesses. Everything that police should do was just put aside to get me. And when this started, it was so ridiculous that I didn't even think it would go anywhere. I didn't think I would even need a solicitor. And then after I turned up at my first appearance and no one cared and what I said had no weight whatsoever, I was stumped. I was lost. And that's where I came across you, Sibley Lawyers. Yeah, I spoke to a sergeant who was a very good friend of mine, and he actually showed me your brochure.
Yeah.
And your essential services package. And then, it was from there that I got in touch with your office, which was the best thing I did.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
For you, the saving grace was some good video footage, which is often the best evidence. And that sort of footage, in your case, if the prosecution had bothered to look at it, if the police had even bothered to get it in the first place, it would have made it clear to anyone objectively looking at it that you hadn't committed the offences that were alleged. But that just didn't happen, did it?
Absolutely not. The most serious offence I was charged with was recorded. And I believe it was you yourself wrote to the prosecutor and advised that it was recorded and where that footage could be obtained. And the prosecution point blank refused to obtain that footage. Said they didn't want to infringe on anybody, any member of the public. They'd rather just proceed without. But they just didn't want evidence that would, show that I was innocent of the accusation. When we eventually did get the footage, it was fortunate that we were able to identify that it had been modified.
Yes.
And the reason given for the footage being modified is that the file was too long, so they cropped the important part out.
And that was the self-selection of the complainant deciding what evidence the police would be able to have, wasn't it?
Correct.
Which is also something that I see all too often, and it astounds me that police, even trained detectives, allow witnesses or complainants to choose which bits of CCTV they upload to evidence.com as the evidence that they investigate. And obviously, as you know, and it's one of the things that would have frustrated you, that open-mindedness and objectiveness in your investigation is so important. And particularly when you know there's competing versions between the parties about what's happened, you'd look deeper than just what somebody's told you is the evidence, right?
And it's not hard to do either. It's really quite simple. It's what you learn in your first year as a police officer, but it seems that there comes a time, or for certain persons or who are driven in certain ways for their career, that justice isn't necessarily the outcome they want. They just want a particular outcome, whether that's just or not. And I do think people convince themselves they're doing the right thing.
Yes, I think that's right. I mean, as a former police officer myself, I think, there's a big risk that people think that they're doing the right work, right? That you've got to catch the baddies no matter what, and the system fails because it doesn't always result in the people being found guilty. But you can't cut corners and you can't, allow evidence to be modified by people. That's just, the system won't work if that is allowed to happen, but it does.
I think the first thing that a lot of police officers forget, one of the very first things you're taught at the academy is is what I'm doing, is this investigation, is this charge, is this in the public interest? And the public interest is so often forgotten, driven for an outcome without actually doing the work first.
Statistics are often,
Yeah.
Putting people before the court just because they can isn't necessarily the right outcome. And police officers so often forget the discretion that they have, whether they charge or not, even if they think they've got a prima facie case, if they don't think it's in the public interest.
I do think too that, especially with certain things that are big in the media in this day and age, that the service is pressured towards media-driven results. That can often be a really bad thing too. Charge first, and we can always get rid of it later.
Right.
Especially in sort of domestic violence type situations, there's very little, if you didn't do it, you'll get off it. But what about your legal fees? What about the effect it had on your life in the meantime, relationships, income?
Families, children,
You can be found not guilty. In my case, I was actually found innocent. That these things just did not happen, but there's very little recourse for the people who get it wrong.
Yeah. But even in your case, there was a first trial, and then there was the prosecution wanted to continue with another charge, even though there'd been all these findings made about the
Based on the same information, Justin. Yep.
and all these findings that were made about the honesty of the key witness and the other witness involved. Still wanted to press on with it. And what did we do in that case?
Well, after multiple more court appearances, I guess more money out of my pocket as well. Not that you weren't looking after me, but obviously you obtained a permanent stay of proceedings, which was a just outcome, but it should have never got there.
That's
because
right.
we were based on the same information and the same witnesses and demonstrate false evidence from the first trial, which was just regurgitated.
Yeah, that's right.
What makes that even worse is first set of allegations had already been investigated by a police officer months before I was made aware of them, and found to have no grounds.
That's right.
They were investigated, and then they were regurgitated, and then they were regurgitated again.
Yeah.
So being accused of the same things and cleared of them multiple times, it's just ridiculous.
It must have felt to you, like I say this a lot, that the system was working against you.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. I lost all faith and belief in the system.
Yeah, but ultimately the right outcomes were achieved. But the courts did the work that I guess should have been done at the start in terms of making the right findings. But yeah, the impact on you personally, that's something I can't help you with, unfortunately. The psychological impact, the stress, the worry. I saw psychologists. I had mental health treatment. I was medicated. I lost huge amounts of weight. I piled on huge amounts of weight. My mind was a mess. I suffered severe anxiety. And this stuff has it comes back. It has lasting effects. And what is scary is if somebody who wasn't in my position to be able to get support, get help, talk to the right people, have the education on how the system works. I don't know how some people would deal with it. I really don't. I struggled financially really badly through this. I didn't have to go to that stage, but if I needed to, I did have parents I could have asked to help, but lots of people don't. That's right.
And yeah, we always hear about men's mental health. This stuff can destroy a man's mental health or a woman, but
you must have been worried about the worst case scenario if you were found guilty. What did you think that was going to be?
Yeah, I once I had you working with me, I never thought I would, ever be found guilty, but I could see how someone could be, and for me that would have been absolutely devastating. I could have potentially lost my house. My accuser would have had more leverage to use in other things going forward.
Yes.
My career prospects, I've gone from being a police officer to a convicted criminal. What would I go find work-wise following that? Even while this dragged out, it wasn't just my costs. I lost thousands and thousands in income. I would have been right back to scratch with a record, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the career that you chose, which is one that you wanted to be a police officer. People dream about those sorts of roles from when they're little kids, and they work towards it, and you get in, you go through the hard selection process and go to the academy. Having that taken off you would have been quite terrible, I imagine.
Absolutely. I was good at it, Justin. I was fair. I was liked by the community. I had a career path which within the police service, which is dead in the water now.
Yeah.
That's just completely derailed that. I was building what I thought would be a long-term and successful career within the police, and I always tried to do the right thing. And I've still been stripped of half of that. Another member of the public who didn't get the result I got, it'd just be devastating.
Yeah. In some cases, people are in situations where I have to advise them that they should, plead guilty or accept the outcome. But that definitely wasn't the case for you. And what we ended up having was a fairly lengthy trial, which I ran for you. What was your experience of that? How did you find sitting at the end of the bar table as the client, watching the whole thing unfold in front of you?
Honestly, Justin, that was one of my better experiences in life.
Really?
Just as someone who was innocent, just watching the way you absolutely dismantled every single aspect of what the prosecution threw forward, or the vexatious witnesses, I suppose we'll say. I was very, very nervous, and half an hour in, I just felt really comfortable, and I just watched, the way you worked, the way you locked people into their stories, and then using all of the evidence that the police should have used, ripped those versions apart, and left people stuttering on the stand. It was,
Great.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing. Yeah, honestly, I don't think I said to you this at the time, but I think it was the last day of evidence, or when we were given the magistrate's findings, which were very, very lengthy. I feel like it was 50 or 60 pages of findings or something like that. It's just, the feeling that came over me, I actually got all kind of dizzy and lightheaded. It was just surreal, like just hearing, not only was I clear of these allegations, but just, he was just absolutely damning of a lot of the witnesses, the complainant, the police involved, the prosecutions, and he had that information because you made that clear, you brought that out in court, and it couldn't have been found any other way. It just,
I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's I assure you, very stressful for me and other lawyers when we've got people's lives in our hands, essentially, to try and get the right outcome for them. And there's a lot on our shoulders, so it's nice to hear that you enjoyed it, and you feel vindicated, I guess, probably.
It was, the most strong sense of vindication you can feel. Afterwards, I went and sat in my car for a while. I couldn't drive for it, but I just had to settle down, I guess. It felt like such an amazing conclusion to such a long, painful saga.
And I guess to wrap up, you were a police officer. You obviously went through the academy. Have you got any messages for young police coming through today, or things that they might do differently to protect themselves, or anything that you might say that you wish that you'd had the benefit of that wisdom at the time?
Yeah, when you start at the academy, you get told a lot of things, and you get told a lot of things by police officers who've been off the road for a long time, but times are constantly changing. I couldn't recommend any more highly, to any new recruit to take on something like your essential services package. Everybody hears how important the union is, and don't get me wrong, the union is great, but as soon as it falls outside something directly relating to your job, the union may not help you. And you need to have some support outside of that, and you might think you never need it, but when you do, you need it.
Absolutely.
And I thought, I'll never need help. I do the right thing. I'm never going to be a prisoner in a situation, and I had my world turned upside down.
That's right.
So I think you need to have a plan. You are in such a spotlight as a police officer now, and the service and society will look for any excuse to put blame on you or to accuse you of something. The standards that are expected of you are ridiculously high, and if someone believes for a second that you haven't met those standards, you'll get thrown straight under that bus. And you need to know who to talk to have that backup plan there, and it's not hard to do.
Yeah, I hear that a lot of people thinking that, what happened to them, they always do the right thing, but you were that person. Yeah.
100%.